Start recording.
Recording.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the first World Media Coalition Jazz Lovers uh, Television Network presentation. The first one for the new year 2021, 6,260 Smatawi. Today, we have the political insurrection of Set in the White House 2021 AD inauguration edition. For those of you who don't know, and everybody should know, today is the inauguration for the new president of the United States Corporation, Joe Biden. And as you see what's going on, some people are not happy about it. Today, it's a small show, but it's a great show. I'm your host, Ahmad Amar Mansour Ali El Bey, and we have the founder and host of the World Media Coalition Jazz Lovers Television Network, our elder spiritual leader, Makakuvu Ali El Bey. So we have some interesting things going on today. But first, let me tell you about the World Media Coalition Jazz Lovers Television Network. We are a stakeholder, self-perpetuating, monetary money-building system where you get paid to watch TV. So you bring people in to watch the programs. We have business, news, education, and conscious entertainment. Nothing that you see on TV or BET, VH1 will be seen here. Everything is meant to build our people and uplift our people. And like I said, you get paid to watch. I'd like to bring in our spiritual elder, Makakuvu Ali Al Bey, to give us some words and bring us into this production today. Once again, it's great to have everybody here. First production of the new year, 6,260 Smatawi 2021 AD. I yield.
Lion of the New Dawn. How's my volume?
Great.
Okay, for some reason, I keep getting a graphic of a phone image instead of, do you see that?
Yeah, I muted that. Whoever's came in is watching. I muted them so that we don't get any interference.
Okay, people watching?
Yeah, just the number pops up. So.
Okay, don't mute them. Let them in. Okay, because that image of a phone keeps popping up.
Yeah, that's why I had to mute them, because that means they're when something happens and some noise comes in on their phone, it brings them up on the screen.
Oh, okay, all right. Anyway,
this one.
I'd like to say today is the beginning of the new office of the presidency in this decade of manifestation. And I want to give some background on the pentagram decades so that people can grasp and absorb the meaning of what I just said, which is the decade of manifestation. And I'm going to begin my discourse with an ancient prophecy from this land, Amexem. Amexem is one of the original names, the Aboriginal name of this land that most of you know as America. And America is a compound word, meaning that it's made up of two words. Amexem, A-M-E-X-E-M. So you have the A-M-E, and then you have R-I-C-A, which is the ending of the word Africa. So America is a compound word that means a Mexem in Africa. Why? Because this territory, the Northwest Gate, is also Northwest Africa, the North Gate, also known as Almoricanos, Moor, part of the Moroccan Empire. So in order to establish this artificial governance, they had to get a decree from the Sultan of Morocco. And that decree is in the form of the Moroccan Treaty of 1787. The ancient prophecy of Amexem comes from the 7 sacred flames of the Lakota Sioux over 2,000 years ago. And it is the birth of the white buffalo and the prophecy of the white buffalo calf woman. And that prophecy is as such. The 7 sacred flames gathered in the Western Plains, what is now known as North Dakota and South Dakota. Hundreds of thousands of our indigenous ancestors, many of them, excuse me, much darker in complexion than me. And the prophecy goes as such. The sachems, the chiefs, sent out the warrior, the hunter-gatherers. The first day they go out looking for game, looking for the buffalo. They go out, they could find no game, they could find no buffalo. The second day they go out, the same result, they could find no game. The third day they go out. Now this is a prophecy that you will never hear spoken about in any religion. The third day they come back with no game. Hundreds of thousands of people need to be fed with no game. The fourth day they go out. And 2 hunter-gatherers, 2 hunters, 2 warriors look off in the distance and they see a figure approaching them. And as the figure gets closer, they recognize it as a Wankan Tanka. Wankan Tanka is a spiritual figure. Why did they recognize it as such? Because as it approached them, they realized that she was not walking on the earth, but floating above it. Now you can research this. I'm not making this up. So they recognize her as a beautiful Algonquin maiden, Ukachag. You will never hear me say, referencing our people as Indians. Indian is a misnomer. It's a misnomer. Indian is the term that a man that was lost gave the people that he came upon while he was lost. So now, as she approached these 2 hunter warriors, one of them began to lust after her. And she beckoned him to step forward. When he did, he was struck by a bolt of lightning and disintegrated. The other was frightened to the point where he dropped on his knees. She said, no, raise up. You must go to the people and prepare them for my coming. So she gave him the instructions of preparation. So he goes back and he tells the sachems, this is what we need to do. So when she comes, she teaches them the 7 sacred ceremonies. The 7 sacred ceremonies are taught to them, the marriage ceremony and other ceremonies. And she begins to leave, and she tells them the prophecy of the birth of the white buffalo. She says, beware the birth of the white buffalo, for the white buffalo is a sign that mankind has until the 21st day of the 21st year of the 21st century, 2021. January 21st, 2021 is the date of that prophecy that mankind has to redeem himself before the great purification. That's tomorrow, folks, the day after the inauguration. So this is the inauguration edition of the political insurrection of Set in the White House. So now that prophecy says that mankind has until the 21st day of the 21st year of the 21st century to redeem himself, meaning that redemption has passed for him to redeem himself. Now that takes me into what this decade is. As I said, the decade of manifestation. The decade of manifestation is one of the 5 decades in the pentagram decades. The pentagram decades are the first 5 decades of any new millennium. Just sent you a message, Amar, on your phone.
You're pinned, so it should be showing up for everybody else. I don't think it shows up for you because you're the actual speaker.
Okay. So here it is. The pentagram decades, the first 5 decades of any new millennium. And this is just not any new millennium. This is the pentagram decades on the 3rd millennium of the Greco-Roman calendar. So that means that there have been 2 complete millennia already. That's why folks are calling this 2021. The 21 represents the first 21 years of the 3rd millennium on the Greco-Roman calendar. On the Kemetic calendar, which we spoke about briefly when you gave you the year 6,260, is part of a Kushite Kemetic cosmological time construct unfolding in the heavens. Most people call it the age of Aquarius. That's on the Greco-Roman calendar, folks. So in any event, the pentagram decades from 2000 to 2010 is the decade of enlightenment, as signified by the discovery of the Grand Unified Theorem by Dr. Gabriel Oyibo, a Nigerian physicist, who discovered the mathematical equation that Einstein was looking for when he died. So now, 2000 to 2010, the decade of enlightenment. 2011 to 2020, the decade of redemption, as signified by the election of Barack Obama in 2008, coming into the decade of redemption, because there were people who sought to be redeemed from the satanic ways of the American empire. Yeah, I said it, the satanic ways of the American empire. One of the first ways or characteristics of the satanic ways of the American empire was the genocide of the indigenous people, led by the invasion of so-called Christopher Columbus. Genocide, folks. So now, the decade of redemption began with the earthquake in Haiti. Over 250,000 people died. Folks dropped down on their knees, said, oh my God, we must rush to Haiti. Then you had other earthquakes. Then you had tsunamis in that last decade, which ended at the beginning of the decade of manifestation. Manifestation means redemption is not for us. You cannot go to church or to the mosque or to the synagogue or to the temple and profess belief, excuse me, in a system or an individual and get redeemed. There is only one pathway for redemption. And that pathway is to lift fallen humanity. I'm gonna say that again. There is only one pathway for redemption. Why? Because the Creator, the Most High, has bestowed upon humanity everything that's needed for us to be successful. There are those who have been given much, and for those who have been given much, there is much expected. And this land was given much, although it was stolen, although it committed suicide, genocide, racism. It was given much. So redemption is for those who have been given much. Redemption is to lift those who have not as much, fallen humanity. Therein lies your redemption. So now going into the decade of manifestation, remember, I'm speaking about the birth of the white buffalo because it says that mankind has until the 21st day of the 21st year of the 21st century to redeem himself before the great purification. So it's telling you in that prophecy that you are coming out of the decade of redemption, going into the decade of manifestation. Now, what does manifestation mean? Manifestation means that those acts of redemption to lift fallen humanity will become evident in the lifting of fallen humanity. That means you will see thy works in thy brethren. You will see thy works in thy brethren of humanity. So bear witness to those works if you can see them. Manifestation also means this, and I'm gonna give you a verse before I explain it to you fully. Udama Akiyah, Vine of the New Dawn. It is time for the resurrection of the consciousness of man, a time when evil will be diminished, a time when the presence of the Most High will rise in all, and all will attest to the magnificence in one voice indeed, Udama Akayu, a line of the new dawn. I'm gonna say it again. Because when that verse was revealed to me, I was instructed to say it 3 times every time I recite it. Udama Akayu, a line of the new dawn. It is time for the resurrection of the consciousness of man, a time when evil will be diminished, a time when the presence of the Most High will rise in all, and all will attest to the magnificence in one voice indeed. Udama Akayu, line of the new dawn. Line of new dawn. It is time for the resurrection of the consciousness of man, a time when evil will be diminished, a time when the presence of the Most High will rise in all, and all will attest to the magnificence in one voice indeed. Udama Akayu, line of the new dawn. Now, when the show began, you heard this tune, Have No Fear. That's a Kemetic spiritual tune developed by my Sabah, my Rek Sabah, Rikafa, who ascended 2 years on the 25th, 2 years before the 25th, during this time, 2 years ago. He ascended, he passed on. Have no fear. Have no fear. The most important line in that verse is the line that says, a time when evil will be diminished. A time when evil will be diminished. Hence the name of the second production and the first production, The Insurrection of Set in the White House. Set is the root word of Satan. Set is the brother of Osar. You know Set and Osar as the biblical story of so-called Cain and Abel. Now, right now, you have the inauguration of Joseph R. Biden as the incoming 46th president of the United States. At the base of the so-called obelisk known as the Washington Monument, I'm going to ask you all this question. What is the direct relationship between the so-called obelisk, that is the Washington Monument, and the biblical story of so-called Cain and Abel, Set and Osar? What is the direct relationship? Because as the 46th president is sworn in right now, they are seated at the base of that monument. And that monument is an ancient Kemetic, a replica of an ancient Kemetic symbol that is one of our most sacred spiritual symbols. And our spiritual enslavement is so deep that our people don't even know that. That is so deep within our spiritual consciousness because it is a symbol of resurrection, people. Most people say it's a phallic symbol. It's not a phallic symbol. It is the symbol of resurrection. And Orset, the wife of Osar, the wife of so-called Abel. So you don't know the real story because you think it's Cain and Abel. You think it's Cain and Abel. You don't even know their real name. So how can you believe in something that you've been lied to about? That replica is a tekken. In the Kemetic language, it's called tekenu. Nu means the waters of Nu. The waters of Nu are the heavenly waters of Nu. That's why the sky is blue. The tekenu means the tekken in the sky. And Orset was shown that in her grief because her brother Set cut up her brother into 14 pieces. And she could only find the 13th piece, the 13 pieces. The 14th piece she couldn't find. This was the second time he had stolen the body. He killed him the first time. She retrieved the body. Stolen it, and this time in his vicious, he cut the body up in 14 pieces. She could only find 13 pieces. Going through Kush and Kim to gather pieces. Why did she need the body? She needed the body to perform the resurrection ceremony. So they confused is an unlucky number. No, it's not. 13 is the number of resurrection. The Tekken, she was shown because she couldn't find the 14th piece, which was the penis. Why did she need the penis? She needed the penis to complete the body. Complete the body for the resurrection ceremony. The resurrection ceremony. But they tell you things is unlucky number. Well, the thing is so lucky. Why the so-called disciples, and he was teens. That's 13 right there. But you don't recognize that 13. You recognize 13 as an unlucky number. They call it trichodecaphobia, the fear of 13. Some elevators don't even show the 13th floor. So now, let's talk about the political insurrection of Set in the White House. The political insurrection of Set in the White House. Let me say this first. Satan has left the White House. Satan has left the White House. Satan, Set is the root word of Satan. Don't get it confused, folks. Set is the root word of Satan. Satan has left the White House. And when Satan came in the White House, he said, let's make America first. So this is what he's done to make America first. First and foremost, America is first in the world, and the people passing due to the coronavirus infection. America is first. Over 400,000 people have passed away due to the dereliction of duty of Set in the White House. I do not call him the president. He sat in the office of the presidency, but he is not a president. He is a demon. And his behavior was demonic from the very first time. But let's not get confused, folks. He did not start this. He only did what no other person has ever done, which was show the world, and he's the first president to do this, to show the world what America really is. A festival of the minions of Satan. So that's another first for him. He is also the first person to sit in the office of the presidency and to bring about an insurrection. An insurrection. Ahmad, bring up the picture of that gallows. Let's take a look at this, folks. Let's take a look at this. Many people have said, when those folks stormed the White House, and bust into the Capitol, rather. There was no police there to stop them. You know why? Because the police was in on it. Now I'm gonna tell you something. Look at this. Look at that. They came there to hang people. You tell me, how can they erect a gallows in front of the Capitol building and no police stop them? Tell me that. This is America, folks. Black folks running around talking, well, they African American. Really? Really? When they came there to hang you? Oh, this is our country. This is our democracy. This ain't our democracy, people. What kind of democracy is ours where the police, the FBI, the CIA, the military, and congressional people allow their people to overrun the Capitol in an effort to overturn so-called free and fair elections that they lost in order to maintain set in the White House. This is our democracy. This is our democracy. Why is it that they were allowed to build a symbol in front of the Capitol with a rope hanging from it to hang people that they've done to thousands of us over the years? African American is another word for slave. Not knowing our most sacred spiritual symbol, of which this is one, the Ankh. Of which this is one, the Ankh. Amar, pull up one of those videos, please. Doesn't matter which one. Now, folks, in the first production of the political insurrection of Set in the White House, in the first production, there were certain videos that were shown of his supporters stating explicitly that they were going to be coming for us if Joseph Biden was elected to president of the United States. Now, if that video was available to us, how come the FBI, the local police, and everybody else that's supposed to be in law enforcement didn't know that? They knew it, people. You got one of those videos ready, Ma?
Yeah, it's loading right now.
Excuse me, I got to blow my nose. Forgive me. You see, folks, our people are sleeping with their eyes open. Yes, recently on January 5th, there were two people elected to the Senate. John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock, elected to the Senate. So now there's a 50-50 split. Now look at them. Look at them. Pay attention to who you don't see. And when you do see them, some of them are even helping them.
This is the equivalent of ignoring that pain in your chest for a couple weeks.
That's Chris Craig. Chris Craig made the mistake of saying this was the most successful and free and fair election ever.
Breakdown in democracy and civil society here. Over the next couple years, we have to continue chipping away at the disinformation and the propaganda and the lies that have been spread over the last several years to generate and motivate and incite these actors.
You see that? A new security perimeter has been set up. They couldn't set that up before. 25,000 troops in the Capitol right now. Streets barricaded. They knew Set's minions were coming. Okay? I hope y'all can see this. This is the resurrection ceremony of Osar. This is why the Tekin was developed by Osset. This is the resurrection ceremony of Osar. This is the Sahu. Okay? The so-called mummy. These are the sons of Heru, Dramutef, Gebsenet, Imseti, and Hapi. This is Orset, and this is Nebuhet. Sisters, Nebuhet was the wife of Set. The resurrection ceremony, people. That's why the Tekken was fashioned. So now, the political insurrection of Set in the White House. As they said, this is just the beginning. This is not the end. The political insurrection of Set in the White House. Remember, the line in that verse, the most important line, is the line when evil will be diminished. Evil, in order for evil to be diminished, it has to raise its head. In the decade of manifestation, the manifestation of evil is going to continue to raise its head. And the purpose of Satan in the White House was to begin that process. Satan in the White House raised the head of the pure evil that is America. You think those people that voted for Satan, that fought to keep him in office on the grip of power, they wanted to make him a dictator. His whole plan was to get a war started, maintain his grip on power, so he could invite the Soviet Union, so he can invite Russia to come into the United States to help quell the war that he started, thereby orchestrating the Russian invasion of the United States. Did you hear what he said today? Say he'll be back. He ain't going nowhere. Do you think Satan is just going to disappear? Now, let me share something with you folks, because here's the hardcore reality. I'm going to take you back to the Kemetic spirituality. Geb and Nut. Geb, so-called Adam. Nut, N-U-T, so-called Eve. It's in the book. It's in the book. This is the book that I reference a lot. The Pyramid Matrix, Guide to Survival, written by Hoodie Kaffer. I had the honor of contributing to this book. This is Gare. That's new. Earth and Sky, Adam and Eve. They had 5 children, or Sa, or Set. Set, never Het, and Haru or Sa, or Set, never Het, Haru and Set. The 5 children of Adam and Eve. They don't tell you that. They don't tell you that. But here's the reality. Of the 5 children of Geb and Nu, Set is our brother too. And here's the reality of the birth of the white buffalo, the prophecy of the birth of the white buffalo. The prophecy of the birth of the white buffalo says that the birth of the white buffalo is a sign that mankind has until the 21st day of the 21st year of the 21st century to redeem himself before the great purification. That's tomorrow, before the great purification. The great purification has already begun. So don't think it's like, well, it's going to be stopped. No, it's not going to be stopped, folks. It's already begun. That's why you got the earth and so-called global warming. That's why you got the ice caps melting, the sea levels rising. The sea levels rising. What they don't tell you is that water has the weight. So when that water comes down and gathers around the sides of the earth, the weight is going to cause the earth to shift, which is going to cause more earthquakes. So don't think that you can say, well, I'm redeemed and it's going to stop. It ain't going to stop because it's not under your control. It's a cosmological occurrence that's taking place. And that prophecy means only one thing. The Christians call it getting right with God. The Muslims say total submission to the will of Allah. The bottom line is, the only way you can deal with this is to get your spiritual consciousness elevated to bring about your spiritual liberation. Udama Akiyor. Now, the decade of manifestation began January 1st, 2021. And that's going to run for 10 years. We're talking about the pentagram decades, the first 5 decades of any new millennium. This is the 3rd millennium on the Greco-Roman calendar. The 7th millennium, 6,260, on the Kushite cosmological time construct. The 7th millennium. The decade of manifestation will go until 2030. After that, you get the decade of judgment, because there are those who seek not to be redeemed. So you're going to see a lot of stuff manifesting itself in this decade. Good and evil. Now, many of us like to talk about the 400-year prophecy in the book of Genesis regarding the seed of Adam, the seed of Abraham. And that verse, 13th through the 15th verse says, your seed shall be a seed, a stranger in the land that is not theirs, and shall serve them and afflict them for 400 years. And they shall come out with great sustenance. With great sustenance. Many people translate that into thinking great wealth, sustenance. No, you come out with greater spiritual absorption that brings about your spiritual liberation. Therein lies your sustenance. But the last part of that says this, and that land I shall judge. And that land I shall judge. So claiming to be African American, claiming that this is our democracy, positions you to be in that group that's going to be judged. It says, by claiming that you were part and parcel to the criminal behavior of this country, the spiritual criminology of this country. Do you want that burden on you? Are you going to take the weight for that burden? Or do you want to move out the way of that burden so that you do not suffer the same consequences of their demonic behavior that's due to them? You reap what you sow. The decade after that, from 2040 to 2050, is the decade of retribution. It's coming, folks. Those are the first 5 decades. That takes us to 2050. From 2050 to 2060 is the dawn of the mind-free consciousness. Udama Akayu, a line of the new dawn. The vibratory frequency of spiritual liberation. The lion is our consciousness. The new dawn is the resurrection of our consciousness, Udama Akayu. Now, let's position that on the Kushite Kemetic time construct. So 2060 is the equivalent of 6,300 on the Kushite cosmological time construct. 6,300 in the heavens, in the cosmos, folks. Because our people are counting the time, the Ipet, Iluruhu, Rimpet, Wet Rimpet, counting the days to mark the year for the new year. Our people are counting the Ipet, Iluruhu, Rimpet, Wet Rimpet. Our people are counting the Greco-Roman calendar. So you don't see that. You don't see the Kushite cosmological birth cycle of the Ma'at dawn that's beginning to come, unfold for you. You're still calling it the age of Aquarius. Well, stay on this calendar. Stay on the Greco-Roman calendar. But remember that when the Greeks, the Ptolemies, came into Kemet, they outlawed Ma'at. Ma'at is the weighing of the heart against the feather of truth. So they outlawed Ma'at. This is Gabin New. This is Gabin New. This is Osar. This is the symbol that represents Set. The weighing of the heart against the feather of truth was outlawed. It's called Ma'at. It was outlawed by the Greeks. This is the weighing of the heart against the feather of truth. You know this symbol as the criminal justice system. So you think that represents justice. It don't. It represents resurrection. It represents judgment in the deceased. The weighing of the heart on one scale, one plate, and then the feather of truth on the Greeks, the Ptolemies outlawed that. Then here come the Romans. This is criminology. This is spiritual criminology, people. Spiritual criminology. Then here come the Romans, and they change the time. They change the time construct. Called Jesus. Excuse me. There's a great book written by Sir Walter Williams. It's called The His Story of Christianity. get that book and read it. Read that book, The History of Christianity, Sir Walter Williams, and find out the role that Emperor Constantine and the three or four different councils of Nicaea that covered over 3 centuries to bring about this lie based upon the Greco-Roman calendar. So when you do that, and then when you speak about the pentagram decades, and you speak about, see, Ma'at has 42 negative confessions, out of which they took the 10 Commandments and said, Moses got the 10 Commandments written on a tablet of stone. First of all, the name Moses is not the true name. Second of all, it's not written on a tablet of stone. It's written on the Merkut, the pyramids, and there's 42 of them. So when you talk about from 2018 to 2060, that's 42 years. When you talk about 6,258 to 6,300, that's 42 years. So when you do the mathematical equation of the Kushite Kemetic cosmological mathematical equation, when you do that equation, the numerator on one side of the equation is 6,300. The numerator on the other side of the equation is 2060. The denominator of both of those fractions is the Ma'at quadrant, the 42 years for each of those time constructs to reach the element, on the one hand, building the story of destruction, and on the other hand, the Kushite Kemetic cosmological birth cycle of the Ma'at dawn, 6,300. Udama Arkiyor, line of the new dawn. So the political resurrection of Set in the White House has brought about America First, the first person in the office of the presidency to storm the Capitol and foment an insurrection in broad daylight that included the complicity of congressional members, members in the military, members in the police force, members in the Army, in the Air Force, and other branches of the armed forces, as well as 140 some odd congressional people that, despite having their lives threatened and having their colleagues' lives threatened, voted to overturn the election. Free and fair election? Really? Or was it an illusion? The first person to bring America to its knees with over 400,000 people that he ignored. If you and I are riding down the streets, driving the car, using our cell phone, and we run over one person and kill them, they will charge us with criminally negligent homicide. They need to charge him with criminally negligent homicide. In addition to sedition, fomenting an insurrection, obstruction of justice. Instead of walking out of the White House today, holding Melania Trump's hand, they should have walked him out in handcuffs. Should have been walked out in handcuffs, people. But no, the first person in the office of the presidency that allowed a gallows to be constructed to hang people at the base of the Capitol. That's America first, people. That's America first. The first person to hold the office of president to make the allies of America their enemies, to embrace the enemies of America as their friends. They talk about, well, Biden's going to pack the courts. Now the Republicans are talking about, well, a second impeachment trial. We don't need a second impeachment trial. It's going to further divide the United States. Where were those voices for the last 4 years? Where were those voices when Obama was elected president and some of the same people stood in television and said, our goal is to make sure Obama is a one-term president? You see, the press made Satan. He used to be on Howard Stern radio show. He used to be in the news all the time. They would always run to him and get his opinion. They made him. They made him. And then they put him in the office of the presidency, despite the fact that he lost the popular vote. Just like he did this time. He lost the popular vote. The first person to hold the office of the presidency that lost the popular vote twice. Twice, people. So now, America first. Then they turn around. They couldn't do this before. They couldn't do this before. And they show you images of the National Guard, 25,000 troops to protect what's going on right now. Right now, to inaugurate Joseph Biden. But they couldn't do this last week. They couldn't do that last week. Why? Or was it a week before that? Today the 20th. Okay, they couldn't do it on January 6th. Why? Because they opened the doors to let that mob, to let those insurrectionists in. So at this point, I've said enough. And I want to open it up to anybody that's been listening and to Ahmad to have some comments, ask some questions before we close it out. And we're going to close it out with, have no fear, folks. The reason why? Because they come in. Don't think that they ain't coming. They told us that before. Look at the first insurrection of the political insurrection that's set in the White House, and you'll see the videos of them saying that we coming. They got guns and they buying more guns. They got plenty of them. They in the army, they in the police force, they in the military, they in the Capitol, they in Congress. Don't think it's 74 million of them. And I'm gonna say something else. I'm gonna say this too. FEMA has thousands of plastic coffins. Thousands of plastic coffins. They know, the Vatican knows, the World Health Organization knows, the World Bank knows, and all the European governments know that the European, the Caucasian, over 50% of the Caucasian population is over the age of 65. Their seed is diminishing. That's why they got this push to depopulate the earth. Pope John Paul II, before he passed away, he went to the Italian parliament and urged them to make babies. by the year 2040, the majority population in the United States will be people of color. Don't think they don't know that. Do not think they don't know that. Beware the birth of the white buffalo, because the birth of the white buffalo is a sign that mankind has until the 21st day of the 21st year to redeem himself before the great purification. The birth of the white buffalo has occurred 3 times in the decade of the 90s. 3 times. Beware the beginning of ethnic cleansing in America. Beware the beginning of ethnic cleansing in America. I'm Makakuvu Aleo Bay, and I want to open it up for some discussion, questions, comments, or concerns before we end with have no fear. Udama Akayu, Line of the New Dawn.
Udama Akayu, Dua Nature. Thank you for that. Thank you very much for that. You know, we are actually living in very, very exciting and scary times. I say exciting because, like you said, the most important part of that prophecy is that evil will be diminished. It'll raise its head to a point where it will be diminished. And the nature, the universe knows exactly what it's doing. So the excitement of knowing that eventually this evil will be diminished and subside, and we once again will be able to, you know, Lord in a good way over the earth like we have always supposed to be. That's an exciting thing. And knowing that the spiritual, my spiritual being, my highest self chose to be alive during this time, to be here during this transition is exciting, but it's also scary, you know, to know that a lot of people will be forced to make the transition during this period. You know, I always tell everybody, you know, they've been planning for this for a very long time. I had students when I lived in College Station, Texas, who were non-racist white supremacists. And I had a 15-year-old student who had an armory of guns in his bedroom, a 15-year-old student of mine who had an armory of guns, his guns, not his father or his mother's guns, his own personal guns. And one of those was a 50 caliber, what I call tank killer. So they've been planning for this for a long time. And I hope that everybody out there that sees this video, that's listening, that is aware and conscious and connected to the universe and the Netaru, remains vigilant, meditate, train hard, keep your eyes open, your ears open, and your mouth shut. You remember that the goal is not to win, the goal is to survive. Fighting a war to win only leads more death. So, you know, keep that in mind. Remember that your food supply has to be supplied by you. The more they control your sustenance and your daily needs, the more they control you. So try to be as self-sustaining as possible, and you can get through this. I don't have any questions for Makakuvu, obviously. I know what's going on, and I'm constantly working towards unifying the diasporas so that we can have once all this madness is done, that we can move forward with our people and have our people grow and be prosperous and be the masters of our own destinies. To our person in the audience, all that comes up is a phone number, but if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask a few questions or make a comment, feel free. Okay, no comment there.
Well, the fact that you made that comment about they've been preparing for this for a long time is very true. And as you said, it's not about trying to engage in a shooting war with these people, because a shooting war is not the solution. The solution is to move away from them in our spiritual consciousness and move away from them physically as much as possible. I would encourage everyone to look at one of our other productions, The Myology of a People. The Myology of a People talks about a project that is underway that many of you will learn more about in the very near future. So myology is a term that I use as opposed to talking about black his story. His story is 2 words. Black his story is 3 words. Black his story invariably begins with slavery. And they always say that African Americans are descendants of slaves. I'll get more into that in our next production of The Myology of a People, the disease of the so-called African American Negroes. For those of you who are in the viewing audience right now, I want to thank you for being a part of the viewing audience. I'm going to offer the opportunity one more time for a comment, concern, or questions. We're going to give you 5 seconds. If not, then we'll close out with Have No Fear, the Kemetic spiritual song speaking about being spiritually strong to combat Set raising his head, as it says in that verse, a time when evil will be diminished. In order for evil to be diminished, it has to raise its head to the neck so it can be cut off at the neck. So if you want to have any type of joy in that, thank the outgoing so-called person that sat in the seat of the presidency for beginning to bring about the raising of the head of evil so it can be cut off at the neck. Udama Akiyur, line of the new dawn. Mbagala Nazima Atu Mwazi Umutu.
Right.
Thank you, everybody. This has been a wonderful broadcast. World Media Coalition, Jazz Lovers Television Network, Legacy Builders Zoom Television Production. First of the new year, 2021 AD, 6,260 Sma Tawi. Welcome to the new decade, the decade of manifestation. Udama Akiyur. Assalamu alaikum.